Hi, everyone. My name is Carol from Provident Credit Union. Thank you for joining us today, where we will be discussing identity theft. This webinar is being recorded. All attendees will receive a follow-up email with today's recording and a presentation deck within a week. All participants have been muted, so please use the Q&A box for any questions, and we will answer them at the end. Your presenter today is Christina Roman. She is the Senior Consumer Education and Advocacy Manager at Experian. And with that, I'd like to now hand it off to Christina. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, Carol. Thank you all so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about this important topic, and it is a jam-packed deck. This was a deck that my recently retired boss, Rod, created, and he really enjoyed presenting because he got to share some really fun stories. And when I was going through it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is only a 1-hour webinar. I better go fast and furious through these slides. But I'm really excited to share this important information with you. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So just a quick overview of today's presentation. First, we're going to define identity theft, what it is, what it isn't, and how it's commonly understood. We'll then look at how stolen identity information is monetized, including where that information is being bought, sold, and exchanged. We'll also examine the broader impact of identity theft, so the cost to individuals, the cost to society, and which groups are currently bearing the greatest financial burden. And then finally, we're going to discuss what to do if your personal information has been compromised. And unfortunately, the reality is that most of us already have had some form of personal information exposed. And if you haven't, you're among a relatively small group. Now, the good news is that there are practical steps that you can take, and we're going to close by reviewing how to respond, to recover, and to better protect yourself going forward. Now, as with any fun presentation, we're going to kick it off with a pop quiz because we want this to be an engaging, interactive presentation for you. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first question. Which of the following is the most reported form of identity theft? Is it A, stolen credit card numbers, B, government document fraud, C, insurance fraud, or D, fake driver's licenses? And I'll go ahead and give a second. Okay, we already got a couple of responses. So stolen credit card numbers, fake driver's licenses. Okay. So 5 of 5 have answered, so we're at 100%. And it looks like the majority of you got it correct. So the answer is stolen credit card numbers. Now, according to the FTC Fraud Sentinel, today the most reported form of identity theft is stolen credit card numbers. Now, let's explore this a little bit further. Now, these are some of the categories commonly grouped under the broader definition of identity theft and identity-related fraud. Now, we say grouped under because some forms of fraud do not involve someone actually assuming another person's identity. For example, when a criminal steals credit card numbers, they're usually focused on the account information and not the identity of the credit card holder. Their goal really is to make quick purchases and stop using that card before they're caught, because they realize that we have access to apps where we can manage our accounts and we see right away when something is being charged to our accounts, or some people have enabled alerts so they can see when their card is being used. So they want to just get in quick, buy what they can, and then discard that card. Now, even though they're not truly taking over a victim's identity, this type of activity still is commonly classified as identity theft. And according to the FTC Consumer Sentinel report from 2024, which is the most recent Sentinel report, this was the #1 reported form of identity theft. Now, the second category occurs when someone uses another person's information to apply for a loan, to finance a purchase, or to rent an apartment, or to enter into a lease. And this victim may not discover the fraud until a missed payment or collection account appears on their credit report. The third category is bank account fraud. Now, this type of fraud is when a criminal obtains a debit card, a bank account number, or online banking credentials and uses them to withdraw money or make unauthorized electronic transfers, ACH payments, or purchases. Now, similar to credit card fraud, the criminal is often more interested in accessing the funds than taking your identity. Now, government document fraud is ranked fourth according to the 2024 Consumer Sentinel data. And this can involve someone using someone else's personal information to apply for government benefits, to file maybe a fraudulent tax return, to obtain official documents, or to access services intended for the victim. Now, insurance fraud occurs when someone uses another person's identity or insurance information to submit claims, to obtain medical treatment, to purchase coverage, or to receive insurance payments. And this can affect the victim's insurance history, benefits, premiums, and personal records. Now, financial schemes are broader fraud operations designed to obtain money, credit, or assets through deception. And these can include things like investment scams, check fraud, wire fraud, account takeovers, or schemes involving stolen personal financial information. Unauthorized access to credit data occurs when someone accesses a person's credit report or credit-related information without a valid reason or proper authorization. And this information can be used to identify existing accounts, to target a victim for fraud, or to apply for new credit. Now, this in itself is the definition of identity theft, when somebody actually uses your information and can open accounts in your name. Some other forms of identity theft include fraudulent or inaccurate data contribution. So this involves knowingly submitting false information to a credit reporting agency or other data system. For example, a person or business can report an account, a balance, or a payment history or identity detail that is incorrect and doesn't belong to you. Creating fictitious credit files or credit report identification involves creating a false identity or combining real and fabricated information to establish a new credit profile. This is sometimes referred to as synthetic identity fraud, and a criminal can combine a real social security number with a different name, address, or date of birth and gradually build a credit history under a false identity. Then you have credit clinic activity, and this refers to improper or deceptive actions by organizations claiming that they can repair a consumer's credit. Now, some may dispute inaccurate information. They encourage consumers to provide false statements or to create new identity information in an attempt to hide a legitimate credit history. Now, when you're working with these organizations, it can be very costly, and you're giving them access to your information, and they're encouraging you to perform fraud. So it's important to remember that you can't dispute information in your credit report that's actually correct. It's really important that you use the dispute process to dispute inaccurate information in your credit report and never try to falsify the information in your credit report to improve your credit score. Now, the last one listed here is driver's license fraud or other false identity card fraud. And this occurs when someone uses another person's information or completely fabricated information to obtain a credit, to create a driver's license, an identification card or passport or any other identity document. Now, this one has dropped significantly, so I guess youngsters aren't creating fake IDs in the way that they used to, but it's good to know that that one is dropping. So now that we've talked about the main forms of identity theft, we need to talk about how they get your information. Some of them are pretty common sense methods. Ones that first come to mind are lost or stolen cards. Maybe you were the victim of a lost or stolen wallet or purse. Maybe you accidentally dropped or left your credit card somewhere after setting it down and someone sees that opportunity. For many years, I used to stick my card right in my back pocket, and I lost my debit card more times than I can count this way. Thankfully, nobody was ever able to access my accounts, but it does leave you open to somebody wanting to use your card for, to purchase whatever they can. Mail theft is also surprisingly still a big problem. Tons of mail is lost each year, and criminals can open your mail to obtain your information. They're looking for things like bank statements, replacement credit cards, tax documents, and checks, which all contain enough information to commit identity theft. Now, one point I want to make is as we're heading into the holiday season, mail theft tends to increase during the holiday and tax season. So be sure you're bringing your mail in every day. I always joke with my parents because when I go to their house, their mailbox is bursting with mail. I don't know why they never bring their mail in, and they live on a very busy street. So I'm always telling them, please, either I bring it in for them or I remind them that it's very important that they bring that mail in every single day. Shoulder surfing is another common tactic. So shoulder surfing can occur at ATMs, airports, coffee shops, gas stations, even cash registers. And it's important to always be aware of your surroundings. So look for someone who's hovering a little too close or who appears to be watching you. Always position yourself or use your hand to hide the information you're punching into a pin pad or a cellular device. And you can always invest in privacy screens for your phones or desktops as well. And this just kind of helps to block out from the side anybody that may be trying to see what you're typing into your phone or into your computer. Dumpster diving is another tried and true technique for fraudsters. So they're looking for things like bank statements, medical bills, tax forms, pre-approved credit offers, shipping labels, and more. And a shredder is still a great form of defense against dumpster divers, and they're not very expensive. So you want to be sure you're shredding anything with account numbers, with social security numbers or barcodes, and definitely shred those pre-approved offers. If you're not going to take advantage of them, be sure to run them through the shredder. Now, the FTC reports that email remains one of the most common ways that consumers are first contacted by scammers, alongside phone calls and text messages. Now, you want to be aware of clicking on links in emails or text messages from unfamiliar senders. Even if the person is familiar, if you receive an email or an invitation you are not anticipating, it's really important to contact that person first to verify that they sent you the invitation or that they sent you the link that you're looking at. AI has made it easier than ever for email scams to look realistic. So we need to be aware of what we're clicking on in our emails. Another common tactic is smishing. And this is phishing conducted through SMS text messages. So attackers send text designed to create urgency and to convince you to click on a link, call a number, or provide personal information. So some common examples can include fake package delivery notification messages, or messages claiming you want a prize, alerts about suspicious bank activity, requests to pay unpaid tolls or fees. Now, it's really important to avoid clicking on links in unexpected text messages. You want to contact the organization using a trusted phone number or website if you're unsure whether the message is legitimate. Now, vishing is another tactic. So vishing uses phone calls or voicemails to trick people into sharing sensitive information. So scammers often impersonate trusted organizations or government agencies, and they may use caller ID spoofing to make the call appear legitimate, which is very scary. So common examples include someone claiming to be from your bank, asking you to verify your account, a caller pretending to be from the IRS or the Social Security Administration, maybe a tech support representative claiming that your computer has a virus, or someone requesting a one-time verification code or payment to resolve an urgent issue. You never want to share passwords, PINs, one-time passcodes, or financial information over an unsolicited call. If you're concerned the call may be legitimate, hang up and call that organization directly using the verified phone number. Time Magazine actually recently shared an article from a pilot who had his entire digital life taken over on his phone by clicking on a link in one text message. So he had received a message from what appeared to be his credit card company, alerting him that fraudulent activity had occurred on his account, and it asked him to click yes if it was him or no if it wasn't. So he clicked no, and immediately he received a phone call from what looked like the credit card furnisher, and it was regarding that transaction, and they sent him a one-time code, and they asked him to share that one-time verification code that they were sending him. Now, this was the second mistake he made after clicking on that link. Now, after receiving this code, they took over everything. They locked him out of his phone. They gained access to all of his digital cards, every password saved in his Apple keychain, his family photos, all of his contacts, and his email, and also the ability to receive text message verification codes sent to his own number. So they cleared his accounts, and they did even more. And it was a really good cautionary tale and an important reminder not to click on anything you receive in a text message. And if you receive a message like this from your bank, to call them directly. Remember, Provident Credit Union is not going to ask you for information like your login information for your account. I was recently the victim of a fraudulent transaction on my account, and my bank texted me regarding the situation, but they never sent me a link. They asked me to contact them directly to confirm if the transaction was fraudulent. Personnel records, including HR databases, contain a wealth of personal information, including social security numbers, dates of birth, addresses, salary information, direct deposit details, and they're often targeted in breaches. So that's something to be aware of. Now, many of us know about skimmers. So these are those tiny devices that are placed on gas pumps, ATMs, and point of sale terminals to steal your card information. While many of us use TAP to pay for transactions, that's a more secure way to pay for a transaction. Skimmers have created ways to also access TAP, but it's not as common. So if you're going to insert your card into a terminal, just give it a little wiggle and make sure there's nothing on top of it. There's no skimmers attached to it. Just a gentle tug never hurts. Data breaches are now the largest source of stolen personal information. Now, in recent years, billions of personal records have been exposed through corporate and government breaches. In fact, data breaches are so common that consumers have experienced something called data breach fatigue, which is when you receive a notice in the mail about a data breach and it really has no impact on you. However, it's still important to monitor your credit to ensure that no one has taken action on your information. Now, breaking and apart cars is still a common form of theft, and it's labeled a crime of opportunity. So today, thieves may not break windows, but they will walk around late at night looking for a car that may have been left open. So when they gain access to your car, they're looking for things like a garage door opener, insurance cards, registration, checkbooks, electronics, and mail containing sensitive information. It's really important. We have a thing on our block. We have a neighborhood watch, and we have like a 9 o'clock check-in where everybody can just lock their car doors at night. And this just eliminates the ability for somebody to access your car. Now, while we often think of fraud and identity theft as coming from someone scheming behind a computer or some creeper digging into our garbage, it's sometimes just as important to keep our guard up around our relatives and our friends, because often identity theft is committed by someone we know. I can't tell you how many presentations I've led for young students where they ask me how to handle a situation where a parent used their information to create an account. So family members often know things like your social security numbers, your birth dates, answers to security questions or password hints. And children and elderly relatives are especially common targets because the fraud may go unnoticed for years. And finally, let's talk about AI deepfakes. So this is one of the fastest growing threats. Criminals now use AI to create voice clones, fake driver's license, synthetic selfies, deepfake videos, fake video conference participants. And these tools help to bypass identity verification and convince victims that they're speaking with a trusted person. One industry report found that a deepfake-driven fraud attempts increased dramatically in 2025, and identity verification providers are seeing far more AI-generated documents and biometric attacks than even just a few years ago. Now, in early 2024, an example of somebody becoming a victim of this is an employee in a Hong Kong office of a global engineering firm received what appeared to be a legitimate request from a company's chief financial officer to join a confidential video meeting. Now, during the meeting, the CFO appeared on camera. Several other executives also appeared on the call. They looked and sounded authentic, and the employee followed instructions to make 15 wire transfers, totaling 200 million Hong Kong dollars, which is about 25 million US dollars. Only later did the employee discover that every other participant in the video conference was AI generated, and the voices and faces had been created using deepfake technology. So we'll talk a little bit more about AI on the next slide, but I want to end this slide with an important note. The average identity thief rarely relies on just one source. They combine information from data breaches, phishing emails, social media, stolen mail, and public records until they have enough pieces to impersonate you. So identity theft really is a puzzle, and every piece of personal information you expose helps to complete it. So let's talk a little bit more about artificial intelligence, because the future of fraud is here. Smart home technology is creating new entry points for fraud and cybercrime. This came from our our future of fraud research that we just recently released. So devices such as virtual assistants, smart locks, security systems, connected appliances, and eventually humanoid robots may give bad actors additional ways to access personal information, to monitor household activity, and even interfere with physical access to your home. If you think about it, many of us have smart locks. They now have smart stoves, they have smart refrigerators. We have a ton of smart devices throughout our house, and imagine if they can all act together to work against us. So as adoption continues to grow, so will the potential for risk. Experian predicts that consumers could face new forms of ransomware, account takeover, device hijacking, and other attacks that turn everyday convenience into a potential vulnerability. So it's important that you use unique passwords for smart devices. Make sure you turn on multi-factor authentication. Be sure that you're updating your firmware regularly, and remove devices that you no longer use. So those are just some tactics to protect your home. Another thing we're seeing is that bots are going to break hearts and bank accounts. So generative AI is also making scams more convincing and more scalable. Emotionally intelligent bots can be used to carry out romance scams, family emergency scams, and other forms of social engineering without a person actively managing every conversation. These bots can respond in real time. They can maintain long-running conversations. They adapt their stories, and they build trust over days or even months. And by combining believable language with emotional pressure, they can manipulate victims into sharing personal information, sending money, or granting access to their accounts. So the danger is not simply that bots can imitate human conversation, it's that they can do it continuously at scale and with increasing precision, which is a little bit scary. So you want to verify urgent requests through another channel. Remember, a lot of bad actors are counting on creating a sense of urgency for you to act. Make sure that you have a family safe word. Slow down when someone pressures you to act immediately. If you feel like a family member may be in harm's way, try to give them a call and ensure that they are the person that you are actually talking to. Never rely solely on the voice or video to confirm someone's identity. Now, it's important to know that technology itself is not the problem. The problem is that every new convenience creates a new opportunity for criminals. So as our homes get smarter, our security habits have to get smarter too. Okay, this brings us to our next pop quiz. Let's talk about the dark web. So the dark web is A, smaller than the surface web, B, larger than the surface web, or C, easily accessed. Okay, so I'm seeing a mix here. We've got, okay, so smaller than the surface web is at 50%, larger than the surface web is at 25%, and easily accessed is at 25%. Okay, so we're seeing 4 of 4 have answered. So let's go ahead and give the answer here. Actually, 4 of 6 are in here, but I think we're at 67% voted, and for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and give the answer. So the answer to this one is the dark web is larger than the surface web. So let's talk a little bit about the layers of the internet. Okay, so there are 3 layers of the internet to know about. So you want to think of the internet kind of like an iceberg. The surface web is a small portion above the water that everyone can see. And the deep web is everything below the surface. That's your online banking, your work systems, email, and medical records. And the dark web is just a small section of that deep web that's intentionally hidden and requires a special software to access. So let's go into the 3 layers. The surface web. So this is a part of the internet that most of the people use every day. It's made up of websites that are indexed by search engines like Google, Bing, or Yahoo, and they can be accessed by anyone without logging in. So some examples include news websites, online shopping, company websites, blog, and public information. Then you have the deep web. Now, the deep web includes content that's not indexed by search engines, and it requires some form of authentication or permission to access it. Now, although many people associate it with criminal activity, the vast majority of the deep web is legitimate and it's used every day. So you want to think of things like online banking, email accounts, patient portals, cloud storage, corporate networks, subscription services, and even university databases. Those are some examples of the deep web. Now, the dark web is a small subset of the deep web that requires specialized software, such as a Tor browser, to access it. And it's designed to provide anonymity for users and websites. While the dark web does have some legitimate uses, for example, by journalists, whistleblowers, and people living under oppressive regimes, it's also known for hosting marketplaces where stolen personal information, compromised credentials, malware, and other illegal goods and services are bought and sold. Now, transactions are often conducted using cryptocurrencies to help preserve anonymity. Let's talk a little bit more about the deep web. Now, I mentioned that my recently retired boss created this deck, and I love that he labeled the dark web where chaos reigns and bad actors thrive. It conjures images of John Wick and cinematic criminal underworld. It is a memorable way to frame a complex topic. At its core, the dark web is a hidden part of the internet that enables anonymity. And while it has some legitimate uses, which I'm going to go over in a little bit, it is known for facilitating illicit activity, making it a frequent focus of cybersecurity and fraud prevention efforts. So who's on the dark web? You have hackers. So hackers can use dark web forums and marketplaces to buy, sell, or exchange stolen credentials, malware, hacking tools, and to access compromised systems. Then you have anarchists or ideologically motivated groups. They use anonymous networks to organize, communicate, distribute propaganda, or to coordinate disruptive activity. Then you have organized crime. So they use the dark web marketplaces to trade stolen identities, financial information, illegal drugs, counterfeit goods, and other illicit products and services. And these networks may also facilitate money laundering, human trafficking, and the distribution of child sexual abuse material. Then you have nation state actors. So these are government-linked groups that may use hidden networks to conduct espionage, spread disinformation, recruit intermediaries, or to support cyber attacks against foreign governments and critical infrastructure. And individual criminals and fraudsters may use the dark web to purchase stolen data, to sell illegal goods, to hire criminal services, or to participate in identity theft and financial fraud. Remember, the dark web is not usually where identity is first stolen. More often, it's where stolen information is packaged, monetized, and reused for additional fraud. That's why a single data breach can create risk long after the original incident. So once personal information enters the criminal ecosystem, it may circulate for years and be combined with data from other sources to create a more complete profile of the victim. Now, it's important to remember that the dark web also has legitimate uses. Journalists, whistleblowers, political dissidents, and people living under restrictive governments can rely on anonymous networks to communicate safely. Cybersecurity researchers use the dark web to monitor threat actors, to study malware, and to identify leaked credentials and understand emerging cyber threats. And investigators also use the dark web to gather intelligence, to identify criminal networks, and to conduct undercover operations. Now, ultimately, the dark web is a tool that provides anonymity. Our job is to understand how threat actors exploit that anonymity so that we can better protect consumers and stay ahead of emerging risks. One thing to know about the dark web is if you don't know how to get there, that's probably a good thing. Now let's talk about the cost of identity theft. In 2024, the FTC's Consumer Sentinel Network received approximately 6.5 million reports. And it's important to understand that this total includes more than identity theft. It also includes fraud, credit reporting issues, and other consumer complaints. Of those reports, about 2.6 million involve fraud. So consumers reported losing $12.5 billion, a 25% increase from the previous year. And among fraud reports where money was lost, the median loss was about $497 to individuals. Now that median can make the impact appear relatively modest, but it doesn't tell the entire story. Some victims lose tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, particularly in investment scams, business opportunity schemes, and scams targeting older adults. In fact, consumers age 80 and older reported a median loss of $1,650 compared to $417 for consumers ages 28 to 29. Now, what's harder to quantify is the value of time spent to recover and restore your identity. Some estimates say that a victim spends as much as 200 hours working to restore their identity. And that's according to the Federal Trade Commission Sentinel from 2023. So that's a long time that you're working to recover from identity theft. Which brings us to our next pop quiz. I like that we have so many quizzes in here because it keeps us engaged. So this group lost more money to fraud than any other in 2024. A, millennials, B, Generation X, or C, seniors. Okay, 100% of you, one person has answered seniors. Let's see if we get any other answers in here. Okay, 2 have said seniors. Generation X is in there. 3 seniors, okay. All right, many of us think it's seniors. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and reveal the answers, or the answer. And surprisingly enough, the answer is Generation X. Let's talk a little bit more about that. All right, so who are the victims of identity theft? The truth is, it's all of us. Millennials are making up for lost time because millennials lost more than $1.2 billion in 2024. And why do they say that they're making up for lost time? Because millennials are entering their peak earning years. They own homes, they have investment accounts, they manage multiple financial relationships, and they conduct much of their lives online. So as their wealth has grown, so has their attractiveness to criminals. Now, as we saw in the last slide, Gen X is not the forgotten generation. Gen X often flies under the radar, but they have the most to lose. They're balancing careers, retirement planning, children, and often aging parents. And they have substantial assets and numerous financial accounts, making them attractive targets for account takeover, new account fraud, and investment schemes. So Gen X ages 45 to 59 lost $1.5 billion in 2024. Now, seniors, it's important to know that older adults aren't necessarily more likely to become the victims, but when they do, they tend to lose significantly more money. So where the median individual loss for millennials was $450 and Gen X was $510 and Gen Z was $417, the median loss for seniors ages 60 to 69 was $691. And for seniors ages 80 plus, which I shared on the last couple slides, was $1,650. So fraudsters often target retirement savings, accumulated wealth, and trust through investment scams, impersonation scams, and family emergency scams. And then you have Gen Z. Now, we call them our socially engineerable generation, and this because they're digital natives, and digital natives often become digital targets. Because this generation has grown up online, but that doesn't make them immune. In fact, they're more likely than any other age group to report losing money to fraud. Criminals reach them through social media, online marketplaces, gaming platforms is really important to know about. If you've got kids on gaming platforms, make sure you're monitoring for fraud. And job opportunities, because there have been scams in online job platforms that somebody will take a job and it will tell them, okay, you need to give us your bank details so we can make a deposit, but you also have to buy all of your equipment. And because, especially in this economy, they're desperate to get into the workplace, they're more likely to fall victim to job opportunity scams. And then payment apps as well, another way that they're being scammed. So it's important to raise this awareness for our Gen Z-ers. Okay, pop quiz number 4. I bet you didn't think that was coming so fast. You can fully protect yourself against becoming an identity theft victim. A, true, or B, false? I see there are some people that have a lot of faith. All right, so the answer to this one, unfortunately, is false. The hard truth is we can do everything right and still become a victim of identity theft. So criminals are constantly changing their tactics, and many attacks begin with data breaches or information that's already circulating online. And the goal isn't to eliminate all risks, it's to make yourself harder to target. Now, there are several simple common sense habits that can significantly reduce your risk. So the first one, shred those sensitive documents before throwing them away. Remember, bank statements, credit card offers, medical records, tax documents, and anything containing personal information can be valuable to identity thieves. A crosscut shredder is a small investment that can help protect your information. Second, protect your social security number. Your social security number is one of the most valuable pieces of personal information you have. Before providing it, it never hurts to ask, why do you need it? How is it going to be protected? Is there another way to verify my identity? Many organizations ask for it simply because they've always done so, not because they actually need it. Third, don't carry more personal information than you need. Most of us don't need to carry our social security card, our passport, multiple credit cards, or sensitive documents every day. If your wallet or purse is lost or stolen, limiting what's inside can significantly reduce the damage. And never leave your purse, wallet, laptop, or sensitive documents visible in your vehicle. Smash and grab thefts happen in seconds. Finally, be skeptical of unexpected text messages. Snitching attacks are one of the fastest growing forms of fraud. So if you receive a text claiming to be from your bank, a delivery company, or a government agency asking you to click a link, slow down. Don't click the link. Instead, go directly to the company's official website or call a trusted phone number to verify the message. Identity thieves are looking for the easiest target. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to make yourself a more difficult one. A few more habits that can go a long way toward protecting your personal information include conducting only secure transactions online. Before entering passwords, credit card numbers, or other sensitive information, make sure the website is secure. So you want to look for HTTPS in that search bar and even the padlock icon in your browser. Now, these aren't guarantees that the site is legitimate, but they are an important first step. Don't respond to unsolicited emails requesting personal information. Legitimate organizations generally won't ask you to verify passwords, account numbers, or social security numbers through email. If you receive an unexpected email, don't click the links or open attachments. Instead, contact the organization directly using a phone number or website that you know is legitimate. Now, be mindful of what you share on social media. Criminals use social networking sites to gather information that can answer security questions, guess passwords, or make scams more convincing. So things like birthdays, pet names, family relationships, vacation plans, and even your first school can all become pieces of identity theft puzzle. You also want to be aware of the images that you're sharing on social media. So geotagged photos have GPS coordinates embedded in it, and it could be posted with a location attached. So this can tell somebody exactly where the photo was taken. Now, many social media sites remove that information from a photo, but even if you're sending it via a text message or a messaging app, that information could be included. So, for example, a photo taken in your backyard could reveal your home address. A picture of your child at a park could identify the park that they frequently visit. A photo from your workplace could pinpoint your office location. So repeated geotag posts can reveal your daily routines, such as where you live, work, exercise, or socialize. So even if you don't type your location in the caption, the location may be attached automatically by your phone and the social media platform if the location services are enabled. Other hidden information can be stored in your phone. So EXIF metadata, so exchangeable image file format metadata, is hidden information stored inside many digital photos. And most smartphones and cameras automatically record this information when a picture is taken. So this can include the time and date the photo was taken, the GPS coordinates, if the location services were enabled, your camera or phone model, your camera settings, and sometimes the direction the camera was facing. So if you upload a picture of your new puppy and the image itself doesn't show your house number, the EXIF data may contain GPS coordinates that identify your home address. So why does this matter? Cyber criminals, stalkers, or malicious individuals can use this information to determine where you live or work. They can learn when you're away from home. They can build a profile of your habits and routines, and they can correlate that information from multiple posts to identify you or your family. So not trying to scare you, but just some things to be mindful of when we're sharing images with friends, family members, somebody that we've just met, or if we're posting them to social media. Always log off when you're finished with a website. This is especially important when you're using online banking, shopping sites, healthcare portals, or any shared public computer. Simply closing the browser window doesn't always end your session. So logging off helps to prevent someone else from accessing your account. Never give personal information over the phone unless you initiated the call. If someone calls claiming to be from your bank, a government agency, or a company you do business with, don't feel pressured to respond immediately. Hang up and call the organization back using the phone number on your account statement, credit card, or the company's official website. I can't stress this enough, the importance of not acting right away and calling back on your own. Now, the common thread behind all of these tips is simple: slow down and verify. Fraudsters rely on urgency, fear, and convenience to get people to act without thinking. So take just a few extra moments to verify who you're dealing with, and this can prevent hours, days, or even years of recovery from identity theft. Okay, so now what about the role of credit reports in new account fraud? When it comes to identity theft, it's important to understand that a credit report is only accessed when someone applies for a new credit. For example, if a thief steals your credit card and uses it to make purchases, your credit report is not accessed, so there's nothing for us to detect through the credit reporting process. However, if someone steals your identity and uses it to apply for a new card or loan, the lender will typically request your credit report, and that's when Experian has visibility into the application, and it can help to identify signs that the identity is being used that it may be fraudulent. Now, if someone is somehow able to fraudulently access a current account that you have, you may also see changes to your identity information, such as your name, your address, or authorized users appear in your credit report. And that's because lenders report the updates on existing accounts to us. Now, on their own, these changes don't indicate fraud because people legitimately move. They change their name or they add authorized users to their accounts every day. So we have no way of knowing whether a reported change is fraudulent. However, because those updates appear on your credit report, reviewing your report regularly can help you to spot changes that you don't recognize and to investigate them quickly. This is why monitoring your credit report is so important. It can help you discover and recover from new account fraud by alerting you to accounts or identity changes that you don't recognize. Now, Experian also helps to prevent new account fraud before an account is open. So when a lender requests a credit report for a new application, we compare the information in the application against the identity information associated with your credit file. If we detect inconsistencies such as a social security number, address, or other identifying information that doesn't align with your established identity, we can alert the lender that the application presents a higher risk of fraud. And that warning prompts the lender to perform additional identity verification before making a lending decision. So how do you discover new account fraud or potential issues with an existing account as reported to us? For example, changes to an account balance that are not the result of your spending that could be reported to us. At a minimum, it's really important to review your account annually, but the more often you can do it, the better. You can get a free report from annualcreditreport.com every week from each of the 3 credit bureaus. So it's not just one report a year from each of the 3 bureaus. That's the minimum the law requires. The credit bureaus have now permanently set in place a policy that allows you to access your credit reports from each of the 3 credit bureaus. So you can get 156 reports a year. And checking your credit report does not negatively impact your credit score, and it does not affect lending decisions. This is a common myth. You can also enroll in free credit monitoring services. Of course, Experian is a good one, and I may be a bit biased, but I think we offer one of the best free monitoring services in the industry. We'll give you free reports and we'll send you alerts to changes in your credit history right away so that you can take action. because being able to respond rapidly to fraud or identity theft that has already occurred is really important. We can't stop our identities from being stolen, but we can help you to recover them more quickly. And if you have an application that's been declined, this could be an indicator of credit fraud. If you get calls from unknown creditors or worse, collection agencies, you could be the victim of identity theft. So again, this is why we recommend subscribing to immediate alerts. Also, if you get a breach notice and they offer free enrollment in a monitoring service, take advantage of it. It never hurts to take advantage of a freebie and to utilize more than one credit monitoring service because early alerts are key. Now, if you believe you've become the victim of identity theft, taking action quickly can help to limit the damage and protect your accounts. So you want to contact your law enforcement agency. So these are some steps that you can take. Filing a police report can provide documentation that may be helpful when disputing fraudulent accounts or transactions. And they're going to give you a form that you can complete, and they're going to walk you through that process. You want to report the identity theft to the Federal Trade Commission. So you can visit identitytheft.gov to file an online report and receive a personalized recovery plan with step-by-step guidance. You can contact the credit reporting companies. So you're going to review your reports for unfamiliar accounts or inquiries and consider placing an initial fraud alert on your file to make it more difficult for criminals to open new accounts in your name. Now, it's important to know that new accounts sometimes take 30 to 45 days to appear in a credit report. So if you think you're the victim of fraud, taking that initial step to add that fraud alert is a great safeguard. You want to contact any companies reporting fraudulent information. If you identify accounts or information that doesn't belong to you, notify the creditor or business immediately so that they can investigate and close fraudulent accounts and begin the dispute process. And then you want to notify your financial institutions. So you want to contact your bank, your credit union, and any affected lenders as soon as possible. Ask them to freeze or secure compromised accounts, to issue a new debit or credit card, to change your account numbers if necessary, and to monitor additional suspicious activity. Now, let's talk a little bit about that initial security alert that I mentioned. If you believe that you may be at risk of identity theft, you can place an initial security alert, also called a fraud alert, on your credit report. So you can contact any one of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies, and you can place an alert online through the company's automated telephone system. And the company you contact is going to notify the other 2 credit reporting companies. So say you contacted Experian and you asked us to add an initial fraud alert to your account, we would contact Equifax and TransUnion and let them know that they need to add that initial fraud alert to your account with them as well. Now, the alert is added to your credit file, and it signals that you may be the victim of identity theft or are concerned that your personal information has been compromised. And lenders are asked to take additional precautions. So when a lender receives a credit report containing the alert, it should take reasonable steps to verify your identity before approving you credit. You can also add a telephone number to the security alert. And this gives lenders a way to contact you as part of the identity verification process. Now, this alert remains active for 1 year. After 1 year, it's automatically removed unless you request another alert. An initial security alert does not prevent lenders from accessing your credit report or opening a new account. Instead, it adds an extra identity verification step intended to make it more difficult for someone to obtain new credit using your information. Now, some other information about the benefits of having an initial security alert. So when you place an initial security alert with one of the 3 national credit reporting companies, several additional protections and resources become available. So first, your request, as I mentioned, is shared with the other companies. You only need to contact one of the 3 credit bureaus in order to have it placed. You're removed from pre-screened credit offers for at least 6 months, and this helps to reduce unsolicited credit and insurance offers that could potentially be intercepted or misused. You can request a free copy of your credit report. So reviewing your credit report can help you to identify unfamiliar accounts, inquiries, addresses, or other information that may be connected to identity theft. You receive recovery information and assistance. So the credit reporting company is going to provide information about your rights and steps that you can take to address suspected fraud and to begin the recovery process. And the alert remains in your file for 1 year, and it's automatically removed after 1 year unless you request a new alert. Now, an initial security alert is a useful first step when you believe your personal information may have been compromised. It notifies lenders that they should take additional steps to verify your identity before granting you credit, while also giving you access to information and resources that can help you review and protect your credit. Now, what happens if you found that you are the victim of identity theft? So if you find your information on your credit report if you find information on your credit report that you believe is fraudulent, it's important to begin the investigation process as soon as possible. So you want to initiate a dispute with Experian. If you believe an account inquiry or other information is a result of identity theft, you can ask Experian to investigate the information with the company that reported it. And Experian is going to provide the source's contact information. So you'll receive the information about the lender or business that furnished the disputed information so you know who's reporting it. Then you can contact the source directly. In addition to filing the dispute with Experian, you should also contact the creditor, lender, or business reporting the fraudulent information. Working directly with the source can help to resolve the issue more quickly. You need to be prepared to provide documentation. So the information source may ask you to complete a fraud affidavit, to provide a copy of your identity theft report, a police report, or other supporting documentation before completing its investigation and determining whether the information should be removed or corrected. Remember that Experian investigates whether the reported information is accurate based on information provided by the data furnisher. The lender or business that reported the information ultimately determines whether an account was opened fraudulently and whether it should be corrected or removed from your credit history. So if you have evidence that you've been the victim of identity theft, you may be eligible to place an extended fraud alert. And this is sometimes referred to as a 7-year fraud alert on your credit file. Now, to request an extended fraud alert, you're going to need to provide documentation of the identity theft, such as an identity theft report or other qualifying documentation as required by law. Now, an extended fraud alert tells potential lenders that you've been the victim of identity theft, and it asks them to take additional steps to verify your identity before granting you credit. So you can provide up to 2 telephone numbers, such as a mobile, home, or work number, so that lenders have multiple ways to contact you during the verification process. Like an initial fraud alert, you only need to contact one of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies, and your request is going to be shared with the other 2 bureaus so that the alert is placed on all 3 files. An extended fraud alert remains on your credit file for 7 years unless you request for it to be removed sooner. In addition, you're going to receive extra access to your credit information. So at a minimum, you're entitled to 2 additional free credit reports within a 12-month period. And some states, including California, provide even greater protections. For example, California residents may be eligible to receive 1 free credit report each month for 12 months, making it easier to monitor their credit and track their recovery from identity theft. So here's a quick summary of those fraud alerts. You have this initial security fraud alert. So this is if you believe you're the victim of identity theft, you can add that fraud alert, and it alerts creditors that you may have been victimized, and it remains for a year. If you find that you were the victim of identity theft, you can add that extended victim alert. You do have to submit a valid identity theft report, and that added extended alert warns creditors that you have in fact been victimized. So it includes 2 telephone numbers for them to contact you, and it's going to remain for 7 years. And then for our members of the military, we have an active duty alert. So this alert is for deployed members of the U.S. military, and it helps protect them from potential fraud and identity theft while they may be deployed. It remains for 12 months, but it can always be renewed. Okay, so this is our final pop quiz. I'm actually going to go ahead and go right through this one because I need to finish up this deck. As I mentioned earlier, I felt like it was so much information packed into one deck, but it's all good information. So freezing your credit file prevents everyone from getting access to your credit report, true or false? The answer to this one is false. So a freeze can be a good tool, but it's important to understand what a freeze does and what it does not do. You can place a security freeze on your credit report at any time for free, and a freeze restricts access to your credit file, making it much more difficult for someone to open new credit in your name. You do have to freeze your report with each bureau. So unlike that initial fraud alert or those other fraud alerts I mentioned, with a freeze, you have to go to each individual bureau in order to initiate the freeze, and then you have to go to each individual bureau to take that freeze off. Now, when your credit file is frozen, most businesses cannot access your credit report because lenders generally need to review your credit report before approving a new account. A freeze can effectively stop fraudulent applications from being approved. Certain companies, such as those with whom you already have an existing relationship or those permitted by law, may still be able to access your credit file. This includes for employment purposes, if you're applying for insurance, if you're applying for an apartment lease, a property management company can still check your credit report. Now, a security freeze does not affect your existing accounts. You can continue using your current credit cards and loans as usual, and the freeze only impacts applications for new credit or services that require a credit check. It does not prevent identity thieves from using your existing accounts or stop businesses that verify identity through other means. You'll need to plan ahead also when applying for a new credit or services. So before applying for a loan, credit card, mortgage, apartment, cell phone service, or other products that require a credit check, you're going to need to temporarily lift or thaw the freeze with an appropriate credit reporting company. So once your application is complete, you can freeze your credit again completely for free. We actually had somebody contact us a week ago saying her client was trying to buy a home and they needed their credit unfrozen that very day, but they were having a problem doing it. So they asked us if we could refer them to our customer service team for help because they had done it so long ago, they didn't remember the email that they had frozen with or the PIN associated with it. And although you don't need a PIN anymore to unfreeze your account, we've made it a lot easier to freeze and unfreeze your account. He still had issues with unfreezing it because he didn't remember even the email that he had used to initiate that freeze. So just a cautionary tale, if you have a freeze and you've forgotten about it and you're going to apply for credit, it's important to lift that freeze before you do so. So it can be a great tool if you have ongoing issues with identity theft, if you're not active in the credit marketplace, and it can be a great tool just to give you peace of mind because you can lift and replace the freezes as needed. It's just important to understand how it works. So how do you freeze your credit file? You have to request a security freeze from each credit reporting agency separately. Freezes with Experian can be placed by going to experian.com/freeze, by writing to Experian and submitting all of the required identification information. But even more easily, if you have access to our app, our free mobile app, we have a button that you can just use to freeze your credit profile right there within our app. It's very easy. Now, certain state laws include requirements such as toll-free numbers, freezes for minors, or overnight mail and expedited processing times when it comes to processing a freeze. And federal law also allows you to add a freeze at no cost. So again, freezes are free. You just have to go to each individual credit bureau in order to file them. Now, how do you remove a freeze? The process for removing a freeze does vary by state, but it's simple. It's very easy. So the PIN provided by the credit reporting company is no longer required to remove a freeze before applying for a new credit. The Experian app allows you to lift and replace a freeze instantly with a click of a button. Freezes can be temporarily removed for a certain time frame, or one-time access can be given only to a specified creditor. So if you're applying for a specific form of credit and you just want to lift that freeze for that creditor, you can do so. Freezes can be temporarily or permanently removed by going to experian.com/freeze, by using the phone number listed here, 888-EXPERIAN, writing to Experian to submitting all required information, or again, clicking on that button in our app. There's no charge for removing or replacing a freeze. And this just reiterates, how much does a freeze cost? It's completely free. And this is our last slide that I wanted to share. So identity theft cannot be prevented or stopped by any one organization acting alone. It requires collaboration across public and private sectors. Each organization plays a unique role in protecting consumers and responding to fraud. So national credit reporting agencies help to identify potential new account fraud, provide fraud alerts and security freezes, maintain accurate credit information, and support consumers throughout the recovery process. Credit grantors such as banks, credit unions, credit card issuers, and lenders verify applicants' identities, detect suspicious activity, and investigate fraudulent accounts. Data providers supply identity and account information that helps organizations authenticate consumers and recognize signups of potential fraud. Law enforcement investigates identity theft, pursues criminals, and works with victims to document identity theft when needed. Government agencies establish consumer protections, enforce laws, provide educational resources, and coordinate efforts to combat identity theft. And agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission also help victims report identity theft and develop recovery plans. The fight against identity theft is most effective when consumers, businesses, credit reporting companies, law enforcement, and government agencies work together. Each has a different responsibility, but all play an essential role in preventing fraud, detecting suspicious activity, and helping victims recover. And then we just have some resources that I want to share with you. I can leave these up as if there's any additional questions that may have come up.
Yes. One question is, what's the difference between freezing my credit and locking my credit? And which one is better for preventing identity theft?
Yeah, so the only difference between freezing and locking your credit is that you often have to pay for a lock service through a monitoring service. Freezing your credit, again, is completely free through each of the three bureaus. So um, if you don't plan on using credit in the near future or applying for some form of credit, it's okay to go ahead and freeze your account. It's just really important to remember that it's not foolproof, so you still need to monitor your account regularly. And if you're going to apply for credit, make sure that you list that freeze in time so that when you go to apply for credit, that creditor can access your account to make that determination, among many other factors, if you qualify for the form of credit that you're applying for. So it does monitoring your credit and keeping your identity safe does come with a few different actions on your behalf. So freeze and monitor regularly, and you should be good.
Okay. And then the next question, if I notice an account or inquiry on my credit report that I don't recognize, what steps should I take to protect my credit?
Yeah. So you want to verify it first. An unfamiliar name could belong to a lender's parent company or a business that you've legitimately worked with. So you may just not recognize the name on the account. You can contact the lender or creditor associated with the account to determine if an account was opened in your name or why they may have checked your account. You can place a fraud alert or freeze on your credit if you believe that someone may be attempting to use your identity. And then you can dispute inaccurate information. So if you find that an account was opened through that inquiry, you can go ahead and begin that dispute process. Again, you may have to file a police report or a report with the FTC as proof that you were the victim of identity theft when you go to dispute that account. But what's most important is that we're taking action right away. And again, that comes back to credit monitoring. So once you find that somebody has looked at your account and the account could potentially show up, then we need to start monitoring and we need to see, is this account going to show up? Why was this account accessed? And maybe that also includes, as I mentioned, contacting that lender and asking why they checked your credit report.
Okay. Thank you. This concludes our webinar. Thank you all for attending, and I hope this session was helpful to you.